here begins the beginning of, I'm not sure what. Hell? You go in there and you clean all the fiberglass?
Yes.
Oh, thank you so much. You're cute in your little outfit.
I don't even want to say you're welcome.
Huh?
I don't even want to say you are welcome.
Oh, okay. Well.
You don't have to thank me.
Okay. Well, what I'm doing is I'm going to be taking apart the old battery bank. I swapped out from a wood enclosure to a aluminum and metal enclosure, the way it probably should be. And to do that means turning the power off on the boat, so we'll have no more power. I'll have to run everything by generator or extension cord. This is not what I've been not been looking forward to this part. Because no more fridge, no more microwave. Alright, here we go. I'm gonna have to pause the video right here for a second and say that I never showed you guys how I built this first version of the battery. So I think we're gonna go back about 18-ish months or so to when I built this thing. Because I've been running this pack for a while and it's worked well so far. These batteries been sitting on my back deck here for a week or so now, and they're sitting up in the marina for maybe a little longer. I've got to build a box to put them in. It's a temporary box, and I have a bunch of lumber left over from when they tinted the boat. They used a lot of wood, so I'm going to use that scrap wood. So nice, look at this. They hand wrote all the information of each battery before sending it. So seems like they're trying to do a pretty good job here. I have some faith. But there's a lot of styrofoam and stuff that I need to get rid of. Alright, I'm going to put this on a tripod and finish up the deboxing process. So that is the better part of 15 kilowatts right there. 48 volt pack, and this is the first of 3. The other 2 is going to have to come at a later date. Money's getting a little tight, and I don't need the other 2 until I have the old dinosaur squeezing machine kicked out. Get that thing evicted. Well, scratch that idea. There's no way I'm going to get this foam to compress that much to be able to get this bus bar across here. Also, as one of those bus bars, it's rigid. Probably not ultimately what I'm going to use. So that looks like the biggest gap between the cells I can get with this bus bar. I'm going to have to find a piece of material. It might be cardboard. Might have to be cardboard for now. Upon looking at these batteries a little bit, this one's got a tiny bit of tape on the extra. I don't know sure why that one's different. But they're nice and flat. If anything, they're kind of bowed inwards just slightly. There's no bulging. Almost like a slight bow inwards on some of them. But they all fit nice and flush together, so I think nothing to be concerned about at this point. I'm gonna just see. I think cardboard's gonna be it. I think cardboard's gonna have to suffice. Alright, first simple test I'm gonna do is just make sure nothing's funky with the voltage in any of these cells. So I'm gonna just make sure, hopefully it'll match what's written in the paper pretty close. And then we'll know that things should be within spec. We'll get a bit more testing once the BMS is installed. 3.295. 3.295.
She sees him walking in a straight line. That's not really her style. They all got the same heartbeat, but hers is falling.
So, all the batteries are very, very, very close to each other, which is good. It means I shouldn't have to do any charging or discharging any of these cells before I bolt them all together.
Yeah,
build. Cut a couple more pieces. String it together. Just sort of winging this temporary project, a temporary battery box. So don't judge too harshly.
Big smile, the big heart and pride. Living a good life, can see what he is going through.
A little bit. That's not gonna happen.
They drive the fast cars, but they don't know where they're going. In the fast lane, living life without worries. And he says, I wish that I could be like the cool kids, 'cause all the cool kids,
Perfect.
they seem to fit.
There's a
I wish that I
proper way to do something, and then there's well, fuck it. Now, we have a battery tray. Alright, gonna look something like that when we're done. A little bit of room here for spacers in the front, cardboard spacers, and then make an adjustable plate on the front to give it a little bit of a squeeze to keep them all together. I'm out of screws, so I've gotta get more screws, or find some more. Alright, that's the concept. Now the batteries. I think this is the layout I'm going to use. That's going to be good enough. There's not a lot of pressure on these, but there's some should in there. Between the wood and the cardboard should reduce vibrations and isolate them a little bit. At least that's the plan. There's the bus bars with the cardboard in between. They just barely fit. Little bit of finagling to get them on. I've been installing these, I don't know what you call them, terminal covers, and that makes it a lot safer. So whenever we drop anything on top of the battery, we're not shorting something out. But as I'm just testing and see how these will fit, the next thing to also test and see, which is really important to figure out early on, is your cable management for your BMS. This is the one of the BMS wires that come with my BMS. I got a JK BMS. That's what I'm going to try for this build. Good idea with a pack like this to put a sort of a catastrophic fuse of, you know, people recommend T-class fuses, which are probably the best for this situation. Provide pretty much the ultimate protection in case of catastrophic failure, but they're also very expensive. The BMS should cut out if something goes wrong, but if something goes too catastrophically wrong, then the MOSFETs inside the BMS, there we go, here we do this. The MOSFETs inside the BMS will fail. They won't be able to shut down the battery if things go really horribly wrong, because there's a certain voltage and amperage range in which the MOSFETs inside the BMS are designed to work, and with a battery pack this big you can exceed that. So you have to have a backup fuse, and probably what I'm going to do is put in a sort of a cheap circuit breaker, a DC circuit breaker. I'm not going to go with a really, really expensive one because it'll handle most situations, and if things go really catastrophically bad, then I'll have the fuse. So the first line of defense is hopefully going to be the BMS, because that's programmable. And then we're going to have the breaker, which, you know, should take care of any basic short situations. But if it's a catastrophic, you know, dead short, then the breaker might not be able to handle it. So then it'll rely on the fuse to blow to save us. So that's 3 lines of defense for when when and if the battery pack has an issue. I really don't think that that's going to be. You shouldn't ever blow the fuse, right? I mean, it's just there as a safety precaution. You really. So now I'll talk a little bit about cabling. This is 6 gauge, but it's a silicone. The sheathing on the wire is silicone, and because it's such finely strand, There's thousands and thousands of tiny wires that make up this big 6-gauge wire, and you can see they're all tinned. This isn't aluminum, this is copper that's been tinned. If you point it right at the camera, you might see the copper tint to it when we look on the edge. I'm not sure if that's showing up in camera, but it looks very coppery to me, and I've tested it and it is. This is my favorite wire to build sort of batteries with this. Now for a 200 amp battery, because that's about what we should be able to pull out of this pack, is 200 amps. 6 gauge is not enough. The BMS it comes with, here, let me go grab that real quick. Alright, so this is the JK BMS. The battery, this is the BMS, and so this BMS has the same silicone wire that I'm using. It's very flexible. And the difference is that they've decided to use 7 gauge. I don't know if you can read that, but the stamp there does say 7 gauge. And they got 2 of them. So 2 of them together, if you were to look up how much current you could put through these wires, 2 of them together still doesn't quite add up to 200 amps. It falls a bit short of that. But because of the nature and the high silicone temp rating of this gauge wire, a lot of people have tested this BMS under 200 amps, and it handles it just fine. So it's sort of, you know, running it continuously at 200 amps is probably maybe not the best, but it can do it. So I've gone up a little bit, and I've gone up to 6 gauge, so they'll give me a little bit more, and I'm just going to follow that. I'm going to double this wire up. Obviously what I want is 2 or single gauge of this wire. 6 is the best I could do, so I'm going to do what they did with their BMS, and I'm going to double it up for the jumper leads between the 2 sets of series that I'm going to build here. Back to what I forgot to mention about this wire. The reason why it's so good for this sort of project is, you see the bend radius for a 6 gauge wire? I'm not even putting very much pressure on my thumb to be able to do that. That wire is happy to do that. And it's capable of dealing with a lot more vibration and flex. And it's a much higher temperature wire, so it will survive a lot of things that other insulations won't. The only downside of the silicone wire, if this is rubbing against something that's sharp or potentially scratchy, this is not very abrasive resistant. And the silicone isn't great against all kinds of forms of solvents and attacks that can possibly. It's pretty good against a lot. So if you're building, so my recommendation, especially if you're in a mobile situation, is, and especially doing the small stuff inside the battery pack, go with the silicone wire. It's really the best stuff I've run into. And I would use this as much as possible, especially in a mobile situation, and especially on a boat. Boat is very important to have the tinned wire for corrosion, to deal with the harsh environments. It'll survive better. And but what this wire probably isn't great for is if you're running it long distances through bulkheads. If you have to pass it through something like a bulkhead or something like that, and you might want to be checking out either a marine grade wire designed for that, or something like that, especially if it's going to be in a bilge or an odd place. But this battery pack should stay nice and clean and dry, so this is the best wire to use. Well, what I'm going to do here is only run a single 6 gauge over to my Victron inverter that I bought, because it's a 3000 watt or 3000 VA inverter, and 6 amps is the most it can ever draw or charge this battery pack, or I say 6 amps. Alright, so here's a little bit of math. We've got well, we have 3000 VA, but we're going to essentially call it 3000 watts. Depending on your load, that could be true or not, but it's close enough for this estimate. So we do 3000, and we divide that by what the pack voltage is, which is 48, and we see we have 62.5, and that 62.5 is the maximum number of amps that Victron should be able to pull. Now I know it can, for short periods of time, pull more than that, but a 6 gauge wire of this nature is rated, I think, to 90 amps. I might have to correct myself or something like that. So that's fine. And I'm going to put a 63 amp breaker on the line going to the inverter. So we should be good for using this for what I intend to use it for now, which is the house loads of the boat. I'm going to try to cram two 6-gauge focus, two 6-gauge wires into a 2-gauge ring terminal lug with a hydraulic crimp. Wish me luck. Alright, I have just briefly hit this with a file on the edges just to make sure there was no sharp edges, and completely take off that very slight flange that it made. But this looks like a proper crimp. About like that, I think. Alright, that's the two sets in series. Now to combine the two sets into one series by adding the jumper cable that we made earlier in the back. Always makes me slightly nervous when hooking up this many batteries together, as it should. Come on over. There we go. Ah, it looks just beautiful. 52.2 volts. I don't know if you can read that or not. So we got the full pack voltage here. We're almost in business. Well, no, there's a lot more wiring to do. Okay. Put some ends on the BMS. It is quite difficult to get the two into one satisfactorily and crimp that, so it took me a couple tries. So I had to take it off camera and swear at it a bunch. But it's the same basic concept here. It can go just like that. Alright, I've now taped this to the side of the BMS, the battery sense wires, so that I have an idea of how far they have to go. I'm going to cut all these to size. It's nice, these wires are tinned copper, so good. Okay, that worked. Oh, I was going to heat shrink down. Alright, that's the first plug done. One to go. But before I get too carried away, we're going to test with multimeter. So we're going to touch each one of these and verify that the voltage is increasing from one pin to the next. And make sure we got them all in the right order. 3.2, 2, 6.5, 46.1. Okay, looks good to me. Now for the next cable. So I re-looked at the instructions again, and actually we're going to need 3 wires. These 3 wires. The rest of them are going to go. You take the last cable and you attach it to the last cell in your pack, regardless of what that is. Pull the rest of the wires out, and that should basically a little poke and a pull. There we go, there's one. Wire this connector up just to test. These pins are 49.4 and 52.7. Yeah, there we go. So that seems right. If you get these wrong, in the wrong order, it can be very bad. Well, not good. So plug them in, and then now to activate the BMS and see if it's working. Alright, I had to go and install the app from the manufacturer, and this was the very first thing I was greeted with, so let's see what we got here. Settings, cell count, I think that's what it's complaining about. Ow! Knee! I didn't need my knee anyways. So it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 was the password. We're going to set this to LiPo. Hopefully that doesn't mess things up. And cell count is 16. Okay, now let's go back to status. And the error has gone away. So we have the correct number of cells accounted for now. And they're pretty well closely following each other. They're all on the same voltage, so that's nice. So that is good. Now it's a matter of just going through and fine-tuning the settings for my own particular pack, which I don't think I'm going to go through on camera here. I just went through and torqued all of them down, or rechecked all of them to make sure they have a fairly consistent amount of tightness. They're good and tight, but not nearly as strong as I could wrench them down. This battery pack is wired up. I just got to put the temperature sensors into some place that makes some sort of sense. Maybe stuff it in here between these cells like this. They're like fabric cobbling something together. I just happen to have the right size screws aboard from when the door fell off the front of the Catamaran. So I've gone and put this together. It's just a fuse, and we've bolted it. And we're gonna heat shrink the whole thing together. Give us some insulation. Okay, it's already all the way open. I don't know if you read that with the glare, but this is a multi-plus 2 48 volt 3000 VA inverter with a 30 amp 35 amp charger. This is what's going to make everything so nice. I can't wait. Oh, there it is. Well, there she be in all her glory. A little smaller than I thought, still pretty big, and it weighs, oh, 1.5 bazillion pounds, which I'm not super excited about because I'm getting a lot of weight in that hole over there. But as with the rest of this is going to be a temporary install. So, don't mind the mess, but that is where the inverter is going to sit. Bolt it straight down to the lid here. There's a little bit of a concern that because it's not upright on a wall, that it's going to have to work a little harder to keep itself cool. It's sort of amazing that when you go up to 48 volts, that skinny little wire there, 6 gauge, is going to hold 3000 kVA or 3000 watts. Under 65 amps, so getting up in voltage really reduces the size wire you need and can save you quite a bit of money. That's the 2 main cables tied in. In case anybody wants to know, those are 13mm nuts down there. So, quick update. I got this Cbro GX, that's how you say it, from Victron Energy to control this thing and future devices. And I've just tapped off of the posts inside the inverter. And I've gone and fused both the negative and the positive. And this is my distribution at the moment. There's a couple of Wagos. We're going to upgrade this shortly, but for testing purposes it should be fine. We're ready for a smoke test. The thing to do now is throw this breaker. So now the system is on. Oh wait, the BMS is still off. Usually there's some sort of resistor or something you like to use to pre-charge the capacitors in most inverters. I'm hoping the Victron's smart enough to not need that. Control. Alright, okay, I heard some noises. There's some lights. Ooh, there's a flashing light over there. Oh, exciting. Alright, let me see.
And now we return to the present, where we decommission this pack and get it ready for version 2 of the battery system.
Alright, here we go. Yeah, that kills the power. Now we shut the power off on the BMS. Oh, good. Discharge off, charge off, balance off. I think that's it. Cleanup of the aftermath. Oh my god, it's so horrible in there. So here we have the old battery bank. I've had this going for a little over a year now, and I'm going to look at the swelling. I don't think that there is too much swelling between my cells. I don't really know until I take it all the way apart. Now these are supposedly the early version of the EVE 280Ks, but as I learn more and more, these might not have been those. I'm going to scan the barcode. Actually, scan the barcode right now and see what they say. So I'm going to scan one of these suckers. Yeah, they come up as... I don't know if this barcode's been falsified or not, but if you see the ring terminals are not the new K variant cells, they're just the single posts. While if you look at the new cells I have, you'll see that they have a double post on them, which is probably a better connector. So we'll have a mix of some. They should be the exact same type of cell. As far as I know, supposedly the only difference is that the posts that have been welded on top of the cells will be slightly different. Not too worried about these things catching fire because they are lithium iron phosphates, mostly worrying about what happens if we have an overpressure situation and one of these pressure release valves go. We want to make sure that the hot gas venting from the valve, from the batteries, don't potentially catch any of the wood or anything or melt anything, because when these things do go, they are still very hot. They shouldn't be hot enough to catch fire themselves, but they can potentially catch something else nearby on fire, depending on whatever the temperature is that material burns at. Another note is that I did sort of compress these cells. I wasn't really worried about compressing the cells too much. It was more of stopping them from moving while boat's in motion was my primary concern, just locking them in place. The next battery will also be probably very similar, where I will provide pressure to the cells, but will not worry about compressing the cells necessarily. But they will be compressed due to the fact that they will be clamp held into place.
We are coming up to the end of the video here because it's getting a little long in the tooth. Now, I did build this battery box out of wood, and while I don't recommend it, it did work. Next episode, we're just going to continue to build along. Eventually, we'll get this thing back in the water. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.
Alright, people out there in YouTube land, we are going electric. Out with the old, in with the new.